Look at this now.
Ooh, Jesus.
It's what, 11 a.m.?
Combat.
Oh, there
Whoa.
You fit in seamlessly in this weird MK environment.
Do you want a margarita?
We're gonna do it. On your marks, get set, and go down.
Degenerates, mount up. Hi, everybody. On this 23rd day of March, 2026, it is now time for another episode of Morning Kombat. My name is Luke Thomas. I'm merely one half of your hosting duo. I join you from the capital of Estados Unidos right here in Washington, D.C., joined by my Connecticut brethren, the Iceman himself, Charles Chuck Mindenhall. What's up, Chuck? How you doing, bud?
Not too much, man. How's your bracket doing? I didn't get a chance to ask you that.
We were talking before the show that, like, I know I had been doing, like, reads for the fact that, like, the March Madness tournament was coming up, and I knew it was, like, close. I just didn't know it was the week I was doing it. So, like, the tournament starts, and I'm like, oh, this must be, like, the play-in or whatever. And then I saw, like, Duke playing, and I was like,
that can't be.
Oh no, this is not the play-in. This is the actual turn. I didn't do a bracket. I did nothing, bro.
Yeah,
nothing.
There used to always. You remember when we do the MMA beat back in the day? We did Thursdays, and I remember so around St. Patrick's Day, whenever you did that Thursday, it was like boom, it was starting on that Thursday. So somehow I'm like,
yes.
I default to that understanding that it's starting, but I don't really pay that close of attention.
Did you do a bracket?
I did one bracket like I've done in the past where multiple people ask you and I suck at all of it. So I'm like, I'm just going to do one. And I mean, like, it's wrecked the first round, it's like, because you're trying to like take some chances with the Cinderellas. And this year there weren't too many Cinderellas. So I had a lot of teams kind of advancing the second round who didn't even get there. So
the college I went to my senior year of high school. So I did my senior year of high school. I did half at high school, half at a local university. It's Kennesaw State University.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool to go to college while you're in high school. Not the most prestigious school in the world. It was not. It was interesting. My high school classes were much harder than my college classes senior year, which was kind of funny. But they made it to the tournament. They were I think they were like number 14 or 15, or maybe they were 16. I'm not sure.
I feel like they've made it before too, right? Like they've actually snuck in before.
When I was in high school, so this is the late 90s, they were nothing, but now they've become something of, like, I'll say a regional athletic powerhouse, something like that,
I mean, it's only fun if teams like that can have a little bit of a run, right? Like,
that's
you want to see, I mean, I
was living here in 2007 when George Mason made the Final Four with Jim Larinaga.
I know. Oh, yeah.
Dude, that was sick. That was so cool, and they lost to Notre Dame eventually, but you just don't. I don't know if you. I mean, again, I'm not super. I watched the wrestling finals on Saturday night. I don't know if you saw those. Funny story. Daniel Cormier, for the last couple or maybe even longer than that, was doing commentary with Jordan Burroughs. Right. And you had UFC London on Saturday, but of course Cormier's not doing that. So I was like, oh, I'll watch the finals. Cormier will be commentating, but he wasn't on there. And I was like, well, why would he not be on there? And then I recall from last year, do you recall him like crashing out after the wrestling tournament? Do you recall this?
No, I don't remember.
I guess I'm not sure exactly what the nature of it was. Someone will remind me. He had some kind of an issue with either the way he was calling the matches or like how he was calling them or for whom or whatever. And wrestling fans lit him up. And I remember him tweeting being like, you know what? I'm done. Wow. And I had forgot about that. I checked it on Saturday. No Cormier.
Wow, no, I didn't even understand it. Is Ben Askren part of like their talk? He used to be, right?
He was not. He was referenced this year because one of his guys made the final podium, but no, I didn't see him on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I try to check in on those. I didn't have a chance this year to like pay too close of attention, but they should separate those a little bit, man. I hate that they both happen. The March Madness brackets is kind of crazy,
I couldn't agree more, and I brought this up with the NCAA officials, and they told me to go pound sand. So enjoy getting run over on news cycles for it. All right, let's bring in the third member of the show here. He is probably not sober, but that's okay. He does a good job just the same. It's Long Island Luke. What's up, bud?
What's up, man? I woke up feeling like shit today, guys. But, I had a good weekend, and UFC London was good to me. Did good on the bets. So,
good. Did you watch it blindfolded?
No, I watched it fucking live. And
then how could it have been good to you?
The bets were good to me.
Oh, okay. Making money, man.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
I went a few weeks without winning a couple weeks.
Oh, I see.
So it was nice to get back in the win column.
Very good, very good. Did you bet on PFL?
I had a
Dude.
Costello Van Steenis bet at plus 105.
That's what I was gonna say, dude. Why was he like that? Was crazy.
I also though took whoever Linton Vassell was fighting because I saw some, you know, the viral video where the fighters have the 5 poles and the poles fall and they have to grab them. And
Yes.
like, you know, Chester reflexes. Yep. I saw Linton Vassell go 0 for 5 on that, and I was like, I'm fading the shit out of Linton Vassell this Friday, and he won. So you know that was a stupid bet.
All right.
He is slow.
You can follow us on social. You can see here below the screen. We're on TikTok, we're on IG, we're on Twitter, we're on everything, YouTube included. You can always email the show, morningkombat@gmail.com. And by the way, we'll be doing fan subs today. And the reason why that's important is because at the end of the month, the person with the very best memed fan sub is going to win an autographed signed poster. Yes, all that nonsense for free. We're gonna sign it for you and ship it to you. All you got to do is just meme us, and of course you can insult us. We accept it just the same. On top of it, you can go get some merch for a limited time only. Morningkombat.shop. We have 3 designs here this month, and then of course we have one that has the hoodie, the Trasher Basher design. But of course, all 3 are available for you right there until the 31st of March at 11:59 p.m. I think I got to everything, Chuck. Today on the show, we're going to talk about, obviously, the big events of the weekend, and then we'll look ahead this weekend. Oh, I want to make sure I make a note. The 2 events this weekend, UFC Seattle, as well as PFL Pittsburgh. And then on top of it, you've got the PBC event on Amazon, Chuck. Keith Thurman versus Sebastian Fundora. I made sure I checked in with BC this morning. He is calling those fights. So if you guys want to check that out, it'll be on PBC. If you want to, you got to pay for the pay-per-view, which, sorry, Brian, I'm not doing.
You'll find it.
Did you hear that?
Wait, do it again. Do it again.
Do you hear that? It's Brian Campbell going, can't wait for September 11th. So he interviewed a guy, and I think they were either talking about like when they were gonna, like when the rematch was gonna be or something, and he was in the ring, and the guy gave him an answer like, "Oh, it'll be then," and then he was like, "Can't wait for September 11th."
Can't wait for September 11th.
Now it's clear as day. It's like one of those weird tricks, you know. I can hear.
All right. With that out of the way, we got to get a show goer, so let's do it. Topic number 1. Let's start where else? UFC London and their main event. Movsar Evloev scored a majority decision victory over Lerone Murphy. Now, Chuck, I've got a million questions about this, all about what did you think of his performance? What might be next? Do we think Jayon Silva is going to jump the line? What, all of the sort of standard questions about an important UFC main event, and we are going to get to those. But first, we've got to talk about the scoring on this one. And I will just put my cards on the table. Here you can see the scorecards. What you end up seeing is that basically rounds 3, 4, and 5, all the judges agreed. In round 2, they all agreed. Round 1 ends up being something of a swing round. But of course, there was the point deduction in round number 4, which you can see accounted for there on the left side of the ledger in each of the scorecards. Now, Chuck, I'm going to put my cards on the table. Okay. When I was watching this live, I thought I thought it was a close fight, obviously, and then I certainly thought Evloev was stepping on the gas late. I mean, there's really no question about that for sure. But kind of, I'm not going to say passively taking it in because I was watching, but I thought Murphy won in real time, and then there was the point deduction on top of it, and then Evloev gets announced as the winner, and I went back and I rewatched it, and again, the rewatching process itself is also open to manipulation, so you got to be really careful with what any of this means. However, it did seem like in retrospect, I can very much see a case for him to win. I had it a draw, basically 47-47, but I can understand 48 if you wanted to give it to him. First, let's just talk about it. How'd you score the fight?
I had it a draw, man. Like once that point deduction happened, I was like, I tweeted this out. I'm like, can you imagine if these two guys have worked this hard to put themselves in the position finally to get a title shot and it ends in a draw and they have to do it again? That point deduction is what did it. And it's all because there was one scorecard there, I think, that was basically my scorecard. I had the 3rd round for Evloev. I did not have the first 2 rounds, but would you say, let me ask you as you get into this discussion, like, would you say that this was one of the more admirable jobs that that the judges did, right? Like that they saw the fight, I think, you know, the way it was actually unfolding rather than in a state of anticipation. Like, I think I was watching it just like the commentators were, and I think a lot of people on social media, like people who are tuning in, you're waiting for Evloev to fight his fight. And for the first couple rounds, all the way deep into the third, it's just not happening. But yet, I didn't feel like the judges got lulled into that. Like, they just they watched the exchanges for what they were, and they came up, I think, in the end, probably with the right assessment as to what happened.
You know what? Ben Cartilage was one of the judges in this, and I find him to be one of the very best judges that we have. And put up the scorecards one more time if you can, Long Island. He's on the left side of the screen here.
Okay.
So he had round 1 for Movsar, round 2 for Lerone, and then the rest for Movsar again with the point deduction in round number 4. Now I don't know if I'm a little bit more with you, where I probably had 1 and 2 for Murphy, but I certainly grant that round 1 was really close. I mean, listen, here's my view on this after like doing this exercise. It is bullshit to be like, oh, I blame the broadcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
sure,
it's just be like, it's their fault. That seems a little strong. Like, people should be in control of their faculties. However, I mean, we also just have to kind of be honest too. Like, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own scorecard. But it is also true that, like, 1, we were kind of all expecting Movsar to shoot, and he didn't. That's weird. That's 1. 2, whenever Lerone landed, the crowd would go, woo! And then when Movsar would land, there would be no reaction. That always has some kind of an effect. Listen, again, it's not his fault, but Michael Bisping did seem to think Murphy was running away with it. And I do think that those kinds of things can influence. And then also, Grabaka Hitman Twitter, on Caposa on Twitter, was sort of pointing out that if you look at all of the tweets they had put up after the first 2 rounds, it's basically just all like, oh, yeah, Murphy's cruising up 2-0, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the accumulative effect of this kind of thing, I do think swayed people because it was Listen, I'll say this. I'll say this. When you do the second rewatch, sometimes I'll do the second rewatch and I'll be like, okay, I can kind of see things a little bit more for the other side, but I don't necessarily change that much. This one I watched and I was like, I think I botched this one.
Yeah. You know, and honestly, the one thing I did understand, I guess, in the first watch through was that they were close rounds, right? Like, I was like, these are closer than maybe, you know, I saw they always flash up like people's assessment and the score, what they believe is happening. And it's like, I remember everybody was 2018. And I'm like, that's probably true. But they are close rounds. And so you kind of had that. The one thing that you mentioned is that the crowd, when Murphy would land or whatever at the end of the
Did we lose
judges too, and I felt like that was one of those things that they did admirable on.
Let's see if we can get him to re-sign in for a second. Let's hold on just a second, Chuck. We'll pull you back in for just a second. Let me just freestyle here for a minute. So this is kind of what he was driving at, which was the judges didn't seem to be understanding the fight the way in which it was kind of, I'm not going to say just being told, but the way we were kind of experiencing it on the other side. We were experiencing it in a way where, again, the crowd was lively for one side, silent for the other. We were experiencing it in a way where the billboards of tweets they put up were all kind of affirming a certain kind of consensus. And we'll talk about this in just a moment more with Chuck, Movsar didn't shoot for the first 10 minutes. The dude didn't shoot for the first 10 minutes. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, after the first 5, I'm asking myself, why did that not happen? And then I remembered I had a conversation one time with Eddie Alvarez, Chuck, and Eddie said to me, in a 25-minute fight, you can only wrestle 15 minutes. So you can do 1-3-5, you can do 15 up front, but then you're going to have to fight 10 minutes on the back end on your feet. You got to figure out what that's going to be, but it's going to be that. And so I thought, okay, Movsar's doing that. He's saving the wrestling for the end. And there is some truth to that. He didn't shoot at all until the 3rd round, and then he shot like 4 times or 5 times in round 5. So there obviously was some truth to that. But the reality is, Chuck, back to the point you were making, is that it had a certain level of expectation placed on everything, an expectation bias. And then I just end up thinking that if you weren't really like doing one of those numbers, you could easily get swept up in the idea that this was Murphy kind of running away with it almost to a degree. Oh, is he iced out again? Uh-oh.
Yeah, his connection's fucked right now.
All right. I'll
He
keep
just
going.
texted us.
I'll keep going. Then we get him back on. Just let me know. We'll figure this out. Don't worry.
All right.
So that's how Chuck had it scored, and that's how I had it scored. I think a draw is totally acceptable, and I think if you want to have it from Movsar, can I see a 4-1 scorecard? Can I see something like that? I definitely can see something like that. I can see how you can get that. I don't think that's an unreasonable scorecard. All right, we got you back now, Chuck.
Okay, I don't know. I've been trying it a different way here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if that was on my end, but I apologize.
No worries. If you had it, I wanted to talk about the way in which he fought, right? Okay. He doesn't shoot for the first 10 minutes. When did it occur to you that maybe it's one thing like, oh, I'm not going to shoot because I want to save my cardio.
Right.
But then it seemed like, okay, we're getting past that at this point. When he was not shooting after 2 rounds, what was going through your mind?
Well, and I mean, I think I heard you saying basically that you can't wrestle for 25 minutes. That is a big factor. So I thought maybe because this is his first 5-round fight that he was taking a slower approach. But as I kind of watched it, there's been have you Evloev a lot like in the build up to these years? Because I feel like I've talked to him a few times before fights. There's a chip on his shoulder that he really galls him that the UFC looks past him, especially in these last couple of fights. And I really started to believe as I'm watching it that he wanted to prove some kind of point on the feet. That he was like, okay, they say that I've 9 fights, I've went to 9 decisions. I would like to show that I can stand with a guy who's supposed to take me on the feet. And this is where it got very interesting, the fascination of this fight, because those first 2 rounds, even, in boxing, you may cede a couple of rounds early before you get into what you want to do down the stretch, and then you take the fight over. In MMA, it's such a gamble because you only get 3 to 5 rounds. So I was thinking 3rd round is when we're going to see Evloev start to really put it on Murphy if he was going to be able to do that. And that round almost played out in the same way, right? Until the very end where it started to switch up. So I thought this is where some of the confusion was man, maybe he's going to be really down on these scorecards and have a long way to come back. And it was, and part of that was, just in that whole optics. But it was strange because I do believe that in the back of his head, maybe he will clarify this at some point, but I think he wanted to go in there and prove a point, man. He wanted to go in there. He played with fire in the end, right? He's playing with fire, fighting a way that maybe is not his most comfortable. You're playing to the other guy's strengths and held his own, but it was a gamble, man. But I think that's what he was doing.
What does it say that a guy in a number 1 contenders fight is purposely handicapping himself,
right?
Potentially risking losing against a guy as good as Lerone Murphy in order to get a title shot? How do you understand that?
That's the sad part. And then they flash to the crowd, and who's sitting there? Who's breathing down everybody's neck is Gian Silva. Yeah. And he gets a pop from the crowd, and I feel like these guys both have been behind the 8 ball this whole way, and it's like an extraordinary act. I was trying to think of this because we've seen other fighters basically put in these positions where, if you don't do something really to wow people and steer them off of some original idea of you, right? And Dana White has condemned, Movsar, going back to that Toronto fight with Arnold Allen, which I thought was a great fight. But I remember him saying afterwards, that just sucked the air right out of the room. That fight sucked so bad. You remember this? I was like, man. So I feel like, in that sense, you feel like you've got to do something extraordinary. It's a bad state to be in when you've won that many fights. And I think you tell me too, I don't have a problem with Evloev's fighting style. I'm always every time he's in there, I'm pretty entertained. It's not like he's one of those guys you just start to go to sleep. But I'm but he feels like that. And I think that's been browbeating him. And then they're showing Gian Silva and even afterwards, Dana White was basically yeah, we'll see. I don't matchmake right after it, unless it's a guy that he clearly wants to be in the title picture, because then he'll say right afterwards, yes, he's next. It's a bad situation. I feel like that's a kind of that would be a hopeless situation if you're stuck in that kind of purgatory for long.
Put up this the graphic on the win streak if you can, Long Island. I mean, just sort of look at the company he's keeping here. These are longest active UFC win streaks. And for the audio listeners, Islam is number 1 at 16. Movsar is now number 2 at 9. And then among Chimaev, Topuria, and then, one of these is not like the other. Carlos Ulberg is in there. But at a bare minimum, those guys are all sharing a 9-fight win streak. I was looking this up. My friend Ovin, who I think works for me a little bit, as well as MMA On Point and some other places.
Yeah.
Listen to this.
Ovin.
Fighters with 9+ UFC win streaks that did not, or at least have not yet, fought for undisputed title. Movsar is sitting at 10. Arnold Allen was sitting at 10. Obviously, he's lost since then. Tony Ferguson was the one at 12. 12.
That's crazy.
And that's also kind of crazy in Tony's case because, I mean, you could say what you want about Arnold is a little bit defensively oriented. Movsar, not a great finisher. Tony at that time was just bruising through people.
Did they ever try to make him versus Habib? Do you recall?
The electricity infrastructure got in the way, if you can believe it.
Oh my God.
But you get the point. Like, this dude is doing things that are historically, with the upper limit of what we know someone has to go through in order to get it. And dude, I just think it's kind of crazy. He handicapped himself for 10 minutes, and maybe even longer than that, depending on what your viewpoint is.
Yeah.
But so at a bare minimum, 10 minutes. And he still arguably,
right.
I mean, maybe he didn't win the second, but certainly won, the first on most of the judges' score. Dude, like Movsar, with essentially, metaphorically, one hand behind his back, showed he's more well-rounded than we thought, got a point taken from him in hostile territory,
right,
and still got the job done.
Yeah. And you're showing that.
That's impressive as shit.
I know, man. And you're showing that, like, that graphic. I know that Islam beat Volkanovski coming up in weight, right? As a champion, or like he was already a champion, right? At that point.
Yes, they were both champs.
Okay, so
Volk was coming up.
Right. That's right. So like when he came up, so I was trying to point out, like, that's one of the rare moments where somebody on the list you just showed snapped somebody else's streak that would be on that list. But that was, that's already as a champion. When you're talking about, like, looking at Movsar and where he's at and having to beat somebody who also would be on that list if he didn't just lose, like he had to beat somebody with an equal win streak. That's even more impressive, man. It's like he had to beat a guy that was also 9-0 in the UFC and fight, like you just mentioned, every advantage, whether it's kind of like intangible or, being on the feet, all that stuff, like, fell to Murphy in the way it played out, and yet he still won. That's pretty impressive to me.
He's been in the UFC since April of 2019, and his first few fights are names that, unless you're a hardcore, you won't really know. Enrique Barzola, Nick Lentz was a split decision one that he had in January of 2021. But then in June of 2021, listen to this win streak. Hakeem Dawodu, who again was a good prospect at the time, Dan Ige, Diego Lopez, Arnold Allen, Aljamain Sterling, and now Lerone Murphy. Again, giving up wrestling in hostile territory and getting a point deducted. That's one of the best win streaks currently in the UFC. It's one of the best non-title win streaks I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So let's kind of ask the question here, Chuck. Not should he get the title shot? There's really no debate. Like, of course he should get it. But what is your actual feeling about to what extent he will?
Dude, this is where it starts getting weird, because this year particularly, they've just kind of, the UFC matchmakers have just kind of put the guy that they want in that fight. And, we talk about Arman Sarukian, right? And we say, like, well, this guy's done enough. He should be there. And actually, that's kind of like, when you look at Arman, you're like, well, he's the biggest challenge too. And I think if we looked at Volkanovski versus Movsar, you'd say the same thing. You'd be like, this is a crazy fight. I think the Gene Silva fight would also be very fascinating. But dude, he came off that loss to Diego Lopez, not that long ago. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a year ago. To me, that's not like, I know he's put together a nice streak around that. Like, he's got like 5 wins in the UFC. That's not 10 wins against the names we just went through. It's just, he should never deserve it. But I'm just saying, the UFC may look at, like, John Silva is a little bit like Diego Lopez in the sense that they trot him out all the time. He's always on the Jumbotron. He's at all the events. They clearly like his fighting style. He's going to have the approval rating, or whatever, like, from the UFC. That's the X factor. Do they find that thing and say, like, we're just going with this fight? It could happen.
For context, this is the winning that Jeon Silva has done. Kevin Vallejos on the Contender Series. Right. Then he beat a guy with no Wikipedia entry. But then from there, it's Charles Jourdain, who he KO'd, Drew Dober, who he TKO'd, Melsik Bagdasaryan, who he TKO'd, Bryce Mitchell, who he submitted. Then he loses to Diego Lopez. and then it was a decision against Arnold Allen, but he surfed on him at the end, which was
Right.
kind of fun. So, like, one, you can definitely tell this is not as prestigious a win streak. However, it's not a bad, or, you know, and there's a loss in there. But in general, it's pretty good names he's beating.
Yeah.
But, like, the fact that he's finishing them, I mean, finishing is always important in MMA, but for people who really want, like, title opportunity and they're on the rise, it's hard to overstate how important that is.
Let me
It
ask
is
you
such a demarcation line.
a hypothetical. Now, we like watching it the first time. We think Murphy maybe gets the nod. He probably should win. Let's say that he did. You see the state he was in when he got to his stool. He barely could get to his stool. He looked in a very rough shape. I don't know, like, I don't know what injuries he sustained or how long he'll be out. But let's just say that he had won. Is there a chance that they would have been like, okay, he needs time to recover. Let's go as John Silva because Volkanovski is ready to go.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, that's kind
no
of the
question
same thing,
in my
right?
mind.
Yeah.
They would have been thrilled with that. They'd have been like, well, now Movsar is
Yeah.
not our problem anymore, and Lerone's not available.
Exactly.
Fuck it. Let's just go.
I feel that way too. So I mean, again, it's a swing of fates type thing, but given that Movsar came through, like, he deserves it, I think. And I mean, there used to be back in the day, there was all these people who kind of uphold the meritocracy, like they would really complain, and I felt like the matchmakers would listen to that. I just feel like that day is behind us now. I don't know how much the UFC really cares about the diehards with their, you know, their pitchforks and saying like, well, this got to be this guy. But for their own sort of, I feel like they have to uphold the merit to an extent, you know, especially in Volkanovski, who just did this whole circuitous route where he has to go fight the same guy he already beat convincingly once. It's just, I mean, if they didn't do Movsar, I feel like it'd be a travesty.
Man, I gotta say, if they don't do the Movsar fight, you won't find. I mean, listen, the matchmakers, not just in UFC but in any organization, kind of skirting who a number one contender would be to make a more desirable fight. This is not an unusual practice. This is something that is widely known and widely used. And more often than not, most fans don't complain depending on who the number one contender is versus who the more desirable fight ends up being. They'll let it slide, you know? But this is one of those cases where it's like, dude, there is no wiggle room. It doesn't exist. This is one of the most prestigious non-title runs, certainly of anyone competing in the UFC right now. Probably the most, right? Probably of anyone who's not like fought for a title yet. This is the best, like, most legit run I've seen. He's at the beginning of the end of his prime. He's 32, so I think he's still in it, but, you know, there's not much time left in it. And, you know, there's no one else for him to fight even. Like, this is the guy. If they don't give a title shot to him and they go another direction, and by the way, we all know, you know, if they do give it to him, he's going to have to travel to Australia, which, fine, you know, okay, you know. But if they don't give it to him, that's one of the biggest screw jobs you'll ever see.
100%. And it's crazy, too, that Lerone Murphy gets on the microphone, uses his mic time to be like, hey, guys, don't skip over this guy. He deserves the shot. He's basically endorsing him as well. And then you get Volkanovski, who joins the Paramount Plus desk afterwards in an interview, and he's basically like ready for it. It's not like, you know, sometimes you get a champion who's like, this is not a great style matchup for me. But he was, let's do this. You know, he was ready for him.
We have the clip. Let's take a look.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. You know, you all touched on that. I don't think we all expected Movsar to just want to stand with Lerone. Whether that was something that he felt he had to do just so you know, he could guarantee himself a title shot, I'm not too sure. But you could see that he was a lot stronger when he wanted to take it down, and then was able to outdo him on the feet. So for me, it's quite impressive. To be honest. So fair play to him. He's 20-0 now, and I guess he's next.
This is my takeaway from what he is saying and what the truth of the fight was, Chuck. It's not just that Movsar is, like, I mean, number one contender with a bullet. I mean, forget it. There's not even a debate about it. But also, not for nothing, he's a dual threat. He is not just a wrestling threat. He is a striking threat. I don't think he's better on the feet than Volk. But Volk's a little chitty. Movsar can mix it up. Like, dude, Movsar is by far, I think, the biggest threat to Volkanovski of anyone in that division. I don't know if you agree.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that when you look at Movsar, too, like, you know, you think Russian, what's he going to do? We know what he wants to do, right? But I always think back to that Volkanovski Islam 1 fight where, you know, he went up there and he challenged for that lightweight belt. And, you know, you remember that fight. I'm sure you've probably done an analysis on this. It's like the way he was able to, I mean, he didn't always succeed, but the way he defended the takedown for most of a good portions of that fight was pretty impressive, man. Just kind of like, it was like trying to take down a stump because he would sprawl almost instinctively, and all of a sudden he's got a leg hooked around the thigh, or he's like, you know, he's in a crouch grip. Like he was always doing something to end up in a better position to then maneuver to get back up, which not always, but he did it enough where it made it compelling, especially down the stretch. Volkanovski, this is the reason, like sometimes you see a guy like Evloev coming in, it's a guarantee that this guy's going to be a champion. Maybe that's why the UFC doesn't want, they want to be in the business. Volkanovski would still probably be my favorite going into that fight just because he's so good at diagnosing what's coming at him.
Yeah. And also respect to Aljamain Sterling, who took rounds off of Movsar.
That's a good point.
Certainly took the first. You could argue maybe the third. I thought Movsar won the second between them, but you know, certainly gave him a hell of a fight. Like that's what I mean. Like the proving ground there that the Movsars had to go through is nuts. Now Dana was asked, well, hey, is Silva going to be next? Take a look at not only what his answer was, but how he delivers it.
Sean Silva came out and said he was here in London to make a deal to fight for the title. Do you care to comment on that?
Jean Silva said that he was here no matter what was going to happen in the main event today. He was signing to fight Volkanovski next for the title. Is there any truth to that?
We'll have to see. When we announce it, then you'll know it's true.
Do you want to put your tinfoil hat on there? What do you think?
This is where Brian Campbell would come in. He'd have like 10-minute diatribe right here.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, Dana's a little harder to read in these situations because obviously he doesn't matchmake anymore, Luke. He doesn't even get involved in these negotiations.
Right, of course not. Unless he's telling you he approved specific fights.
But that doesn't bode well. I don't think that bodes well for Movsar, man. He's not denying it. I feel like, you know, they talk about John Jones, and even though this was a lie, you know, he's definitive on stuff he wants to defend. He comes at you and he says, hey, that John Jones was never going to fight on the White House card. I keep telling you guys this. If he could shut that down, he should have right there, right? But he didn't. So that tells me that there could be some truth to it.
Long Island, who's going to fight Alexander Volkanovski next?
I would hope it's Movsar, but at the same time, like I believe Mike Heck made this point last week before this fight took place, and he's like, put those 3 guys in a list. Like, who do you really want to see Volk fight? Like, what would be the most entertaining fight? And I feel like John Silva is the most entertaining fight. But
but see, it just feels to me, it's like, you know, like, how do I explain this? Like, oh, which one would I be most titillated by?
Yeah, no, well, dude, I'm with you. I think it should be Movsar.
But hold on, let me make a point. Let me make a point. Like, of course, when you're building a card, right? You got to, if you're a matchmaker, if you're an event promoter, you have to think about, hey, do we have enough entertainment on this card? Whether through the main event, co-main event, or just collectively, you know, are we fulfilling fan expectation and demand, right? You have to kind of do that. But at the same time, there are certain fights that come along that you don't want to like disregard that, Chuck. But for a fight like Volk, the reason why I want him to see Movsar is because I would like to see what it's like when 2 extremely high-level guys have to problem solve in the way that they present to one another. There is a certain mystery and magic specific to elite problem solving that the requests and demand for, is this entertaining enough? Again, these are not irrelevant concerns, but I think you have to kind of put those a little lower on the pecking order in a special instance. One more time, Volk is an all-time great, and Movsar has maybe the very best non-title resume of anyone currently in the UFC. If you put guys like that together, some of these other concerns that are relevant and germane need to go a little bit by the wayside, in my opinion.
You're gonna miss Volkanovski when he goes, aren't you? Because dude, he's so like, I saw that we were talking about you went on about the cage cutting with the when we were talking about that with Diego, and then he basically goes on there and expounds on that whole thing and talks about this, this situation of what he's basically talking like, I couldn't believe this dude didn't have the IQ to fight. But like, this is a guy telling you, and even in that clip we just played, he was basically kind of diagnosing everything we were talking about here in a very few words. He's saying, like, you know, I was surprised. Maybe felt like he had to do that, but he was very strong when he wanted to wrestle, meaning he could have won this fight a lot easier if he'd wanted to just keep up what he usually does, which is condemned by the UFC. He puts all that into one quick, you know, burst, and you're like, that's when you talk about problem solving, that's what he does. He gets to the essence of things very quickly.
It's a great point. And you know, I'll give Murphy some credit. I did think that Murphy had Murphy's ability to break grip, I thought was really good.
Yeah.
You know, certainly on certain occasions, certain moments, he was making Movsar work for it. But that was the interesting part to me too, Chuck, is like once he started wrestling, you were like, I mean, that was really the dead giveaway, right? Is like once he actually started wrestling, you're like, oh, this is easy for him.
He could have done it. He could have done it a lot earlier and made his night easier, but he just didn't. That's why you think that he was doing it on purpose to try to prove a point. But you know what he end up with? It was something like 9 takedowns over the course of basically 2 rounds.
Yes,
you know what I mean. That tells you a lot right there.
Now there was the injury to Murphy. I think that probably hurt his ability to defend the takedown. But nevertheless, like the idea that like he couldn't have done that earlier is, you know, he chose not to do that earlier.
Yeah.
Funny part about all of this, I don't really know where Lerone Murphy goes from here, but he had a back and forth with Diego Lopez on Twitter. Diego tweets, "No, Lerone, we are not the same. Never do that again." I'm not sure what that means exactly. And then Lerone responds, "I didn't lay on my back and guard for 3 rounds, bro. Let's fight next." I got to tell you, I'm not sure what's next for Lerone, but that fight sounds suitable to me.
Yeah, I would be okay with that. I mean, I actually kind of like that they have some heat. That would make a lot of sense. Just thinking about it really quickly here. What is I mean, in a weird way, like where does Diego go to? I mean, you kind of get to the, like he gets his title shot. What are you going to do with him? I don't know if you can't really plug him back into a title situation for a long time. I made jokes about this and people were talking about it, but yes, that's a good point. Diego still has to get by the White House card fight that he has planned, but he's very good at like sort of like planting seeds. You know, what I've noticed that over his career.
Also, Murphy might need some time to heal up too. I'm not sure what the extent of his injuries are, but I'll just say this: Movsar, a very in the end, a close fight, certainly early, a little bit more easy to read down the stretch. Some interesting judging, something to think about how we are going to watch judging or watch performances again. And we can't put all the blame on the broadcast, but we also, I think, cannot be ignorant that the broadcast can have some effect. So, something to think about going forward. All right, let's talk about the rest of that UFC London main card. Topic number 2. Now, to me, Chuck, we'll talk more about this too. There were high highs and low lows on this card in both the prelims and the main, but just for the main, I didn't think this was a high or a low. Luke Riley gets the job done, I thought, in defeating Michael Aswell. But can I just tell you what my problem with the fight was? And then, you know, we could talk about it.
Yeah.
There was nothing really wrong with the fight. There was nothing really bad about the fight. Riley started a little slow, which the commentators had kind of noted he does sometimes. But then by the end of the third, he was kind of, maybe cruising is a strong word, but you could tell he was going to win a, you know, unanimous decision victory in all likelihood. My problem is, while I understand that they wanted to put him in a co-main event role, between him and Aswell, the competitor, they had a combined 3 UFC fights. It's like, I don't think guys like that should be in co-main events. And this is my major problem. I can't say the fight was bad because it was not, but I can also not say that the fight was particularly good. It wasn't, it was just, this fight to me exemplifies the era that we're in right now. It feels like the diet soda era of MMA, where the guys are good enough to respect, but no one, main event notwithstanding, but I'm talking about the rest of the card, like no one's really doing anything that is noteworthy or special or creative or different. Everyone's just kind of respectably good, and that's the end of it. I don't know if you share that assessment with this fight or more broadly, but give me your feeling on the co-main event.
Well, I think it was Long Island Luke that was making this point about there's been a very different approach to placement on cards, like where guys are being set up. I remember we were talking about Oral By. I remember like ended up on the prelims or something. And we're like, why isn't it like that fight should be on the main card? This was a weird one because why not just put this early on the main card? Why does it have to be the co-main event? It was very strange in that way, right? I don't think either dude had like a Wikipedia page either. Like it's like, not that this is like the end all gauge, but it's just, I'm with you on that sentiment for that reason. Like these guys, the fanfare, even if you got an English fighter, that's kind of it's even Bellator would try to like sweeten the deal with its co-main. They wouldn't have this fight as the, you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't have that the penultimate fight. It ended up being okay. Like I was kind of like you. I felt like Riley kind of, fed off the crowd, and that's what you should do in a big London event. That's if we've seen that in the past where guys are able to do that. He was able to kind of stuff the takedowns and keep it standing. Like there was some crisp boxing sequences. Like it was fine. It was a good victory, but I was kind of like you're saying there. You're like, why is this kind of the lead into what I thought was one of the better main events for a fight night that we've seen in a long time?
I'm not even sure. Like, I think they were obviously trying to set up Luke Riley. We had talked about it before.
Yeah.
He had a nice win previously. He was boys with Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But it's like, dude, I want people who are a little bit seasoned or super creative, or, there's a reason to get hyped about them other than just their nationality. Nationality is important. In fact, it can be critical. But oftentimes it can be a substitute for the other parts of fighting that you actually need them to have more of.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, it was so bad, it was so terrible. No, it was not. It was fine. That was the problem. It was just fine.
It was certainly better than the alternative. They were going to put MVP's fight on top of it. Like if they're going to put him in the co-main, this was the right call. The end.
Yeah, I mean, relative to prospect. Relative to that, it was a better call, but it's like there was probably a few of these that could have gone into that role as well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about that one. Michael Venom Page and Sam Patterson. Just straight up, this is easily one of the worst UFC fights I've ever seen. I don't know what your reaction. Here's your tweet from it. Quote, not sure of the full criteria, but if the judges award caution, MVP is running away with this fight. It's a good zing. Chuck, what the fuck was that?
I don't know what it was, but honestly, it was neck and neck because the other cat wasn't exactly pressing the action. He did try to kind of crowd him a little bit, take away take away MVP's arsenal and put him on the fence. But I mean, that just kind of added to the dullness of the event. Like just the reluctance, the kind of, constant deking and movement to get in, then move him back out. Like it's just, the thing that came to mind, and I know a lot of people made this reference, was, it was the Ngannou versus Derek Lewis fight, only because that particular fight, you had a huge anticipation that something was going to go down. Somebody was going to get knocked out, that there was going to be action, and it just didn't end up there. The difference between MVP is that we've seen him in some duds before, man. I went to the Mohegan Sun, and I think it was the Paul Daly fight. You're waiting for a fight to break out, and never really did. It was just kind of like it was kind of like a stalemate for 3 rounds or whatever it was for that fight. I was there, and I just remember the crowd just falling asleep during that fight, and so there's something about like him in general, like at this point, that I'm like, I don't know, man. Like he came in with all that fanfare, but it's not translating for me over the course of time.
He's hit or miss. Like with the right opponent, he's electric, and with sometimes what you think is the right opponent, it just doesn't work at all. Like you mentioned the Paul Daly fight, dude. Sam Patterson. I remember looking this up when I did my post-fight show. Dude, he went into that fight first round rear naked choke over, not the name, but Johan Lainez.
Right.
Kiefer Crosby, he arm triangles in the first round. Danny Barlow, he KOs in the first round. Trey Waters, who's a respectable striker, he KOs in round 1. You're like, okay, you can see what the UFC matchmakers were doing. They were trying to find a guy who was just going to go in there and bring the fight to him.
Right.
And then he just didn't. So, like, I'm
happy training partner, though. Like, you don't put a guy who kind of knows the tendencies, right? Like,
yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like there's that too. But this is my point, too. It's like, I think if people want to blame MVP because he often is somewhat the common denominator in this situation, I think in this particular one, Patterson deserves more of the blame than
I agree.
him.
That's why I kind of regretted the tweet, because I was like, I should have put it on both of them. If you're going to make the joke, you should put it on both of them.
Oh, fair enough.
But I will say that MVP is the A side. He's the only reason that anybody cares. So, like, if there's going to be higher scrutiny on kind of deserving a reputation over the course of time, it's going to fall to him, right? At some point to get something going in that fight. It just never happened. And it never felt like it was going to. From the first little bit of that, like first minute and a half, 2 minutes, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a stinker, man. You knew what was happening here.
You get a guy who doesn't really want to engage that much and has good enough footwork to evade. Turns out that like that's going to make for a really bad fight with MVP. You know what I mean? Because MVP is not going to chase him down and go for a takedown. You know what I mean?
Remember that stretch with Anderson Silva where, I mean, if it's hard to forget, but like the Damian Maia was like the high, like, or the low point, right? Like where he's just like, you're waiting for him to rediscover some kind of passion to engage. Like he was never going to, like, it felt like it was never coming until Chael Sonnen came along and kind of forced something more out of him. But like he went through a few fights where I remember people were complaining about him being, it's a little similar in the sense like, a guy who has a reputation for being a sniper and can do some crazy things. Remember, he put the dent in Evangelista, what's his name, Santos' head, which is just
Santos, yeah.
It's still one of those moments that I'm like, I can't even believe that happened. He's had those moments, and I just remember it kind of reminds me. Anderson Silva was always more engaging than this. He just was more of a showboat, I get, like similar showboat. So there's some similarities there, but finding the right guy that's what it comes down to, is like almost finding the right guy for MVP, and that's. I don't think the matchmakers want to play that game with. I don't think they see him as worth it anymore.
Do you think UFC will cut him?
You know, when they didn't do the post-fight, like where they didn't go in there and interview him, doesn't that usually signal like, dude, the truck is pissed? Like people are like whoever's in the ears is like, do not interview that guy. We don't want anything to do with this. Because I've heard those stories before. So the fact that happened made me think that they just might part ways with him. How old is he too, by the way? Like he's up there in age,
like 38-ish.
I mean, if he's fighting like in a swing type bout on a London card, I don't know what. I know they have a ton of shows, but I'm like, I don't know what use he serves maybe for what he's making in the UFC. Like, I don't know if they'll see him as somebody who's like, nah, the red flags are too many, get rid of him.
I guess we'll see. Also on this main card, Christian Leroy Duncan defeated Roman Dolidze via unanimous decision. And it's like, look, the longer that went, the more it was obvious that was CLD's fight. Would you call it a statement win?
I mean, it kind of depends on how you look at Dolidze at this point too, right? Like, I mean, I thought Dolidze would put on a pretty good performance here. But as that fight, especially as it played out, like there was such a speed difference and everything. So it's kind of like, is Dolidze declining enough where you can call it a statement? I will say that this is probably the biggest win in that way of a guy who's had that juice that's kind of been up in that top 10 space. I feel like this is a big win for him. It would have been better, obviously, if he could put the fight away and make some kind of emphatic statement. But I thought it was a good fight by him. Just kind of like he had to kind of do some things in there and showcase his speed advantage. And I thought he did that. It just wasn't, it wasn't like it was going to, I don't know what it does for him ultimately, to be honest. I'm like, it just probably puts him into another situation where he's fighting a guy at Dolidze's level, right?
I would also say, if I can, like, it's amazing how much, if you got someone skilled enough at it, how much someone can survive in a fight in turtle.
Yeah.
You know, there used to be a thing where you just kind of cover up in turtle like this, and then, the fight would be over soon after you got kneed in the ribs or something. And now guys are finding ways to like grab appendages or roll through or, So it ended up being that like Dolidze would either get dropped or go to the ground and then cover through turtle or trying to grab a heel from guard. And CLD couldn't really pour on the offense after that.
Right.
So it's like, it's definitely his best win in terms of name value. It's definitely going to move him up a lot in the rankings. I just can't call it a statement win.
Yeah. You've pointed this out in the past, like, guys have figured out in general, and part of maybe this is one of the reasons where the viewing experience isn't the same or the excitement level isn't the same, to nullify certain situations where they're in trouble and things like that. Like, I feel like this is an evolution, a small evolution within the game to survive. And when a guy doesn't, you've mentioned this in the past, so that when a guy doesn't have the next level then to figure out how to put him away, it becomes a stalemate in a weird way, even though the one guy's clearly on top and he's winning the fight. And I feel like we've seen a lot of that lately. Just where guys just can't, they cannot, the other guy has just enough to kind of hang on, and it's clear that he'll do that as long as he has to, and the other guy can't figure out how to put him away.
I think people think about developing skills as a question of like striking, grappling, or even grappling scenarios. And I don't know the answer to this because I'm not in gyms enough to really say, but I really wonder about how much finishing is thought of as a skill.
Right.
I mean, not just, if I have back mount, I'll finish with a rear naked choke, but I mean more broadly, how to funnel a fight into a fight-ending scenario and then ultimately close that off. It seems like that ability to funnel in that direction is almost serendipity in certain cases. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to do my game, and I might win, and I might get a win over a great name, but am I actually funneling like Ilya Topuria funnels the fight very clearly into fight-ending scenarios, and then he's got big power, of course, to make it work. But
it does feel like you said serendipity. That's what it feels like. It feels like, okay, I'm in this position now. Like, it's an interesting development. It used to be that guys had no poise in that situation. They drop somebody, they'd launch in there maybe recklessly and end up, in a bad situation, or they would just have a wrong instinct in the way that they approached it. But these days, I just feel like they don't like, they're getting nullified when they go in for the kill, and they just don't know what to do from that spot. It's just it's a weird development, but I feel like the game has to keep evolving. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot more of that.
Also for Dolidze, I mean, he was coming off the loss to Anthony Hernandez, which was a bit of a beating. He didn't look too great to me, Chuck. He looked like not over the hill, although he's certainly getting older at 37. He didn't look to me over the hill. He looked to me gun shy a little bit. Was that your read?
Well, and it might have been from that fight. Like, so we see that so often, man, where a guy really gets pieced up, and then in the next fight, they're just not the same fight. I don't know if ultimately that's what's going on with him, but I did notice that. And it's always a hard thing because you're like, well, dude, at 37, you don't have, like, I don't know how long he wants to go in the game. He's got other businesses. I know he has like a grocery store that he owns in his home city, but he's definitely got other interests and I don't know if he wants to be in the game that long. So it's, at that point, you're sort of like, well, leave it all out there when you can. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
Yeah. All right. In hindsight, given the way that it went, and I got to bring in Long Island Luke here, actually. We should talk about this. Long Island, Danny Silva just kind of running over Curtis Campbell. Curtis Campbell, did you notice when he was doing the, before the fight, they're sitting in the chair and they're like, tonight I'm going to get the best win of my life. They do all that shit. Did you notice he had the same haircut as the Ibiza final boss? Did you see that?
I just want to say I was talking mad shit about Curtis Campbell. Like, I wasn't even meaning to, but I was like, why the fuck is this guy on the main card? And it was just very satisfying to see how that fight went, because got to give Danny Segura a shout out too. Danny Segura was like, yo, Danny Silva's the truth. I'm telling you, this guy's underrated.
Wow.
He was like a plus 200 dog. So shout out to Danny Silva. That was a great win. That was arguably my favorite fight of the night, honestly. Well, main event was obviously my favorite fight.
Yeah.
But,
Chuck, what'd you think?
Outcome because he had money on. I wouldn't say that I bought into, the full on, like, I felt like he was getting more shine than he should have. What is he, like 23 years old? I felt like they're kind of putting him into a crazy situation here. Garcia, like, he's got more, he has the experience factor. So it was almost like, okay, if the kid goes in there and he's able to do work, it's going to look good. But there was this, I felt like there was a very high risk of something like this happen. I remember Chase Hooper back in the day when he was about 20 or 20, whatever it was, very young. He ran into Alex Caceres, remember? And it was like, not that they were the same. He wasn't like being circled in a big way like this yet, but there was enough people who were paying attention to him. And, you see him run into something he doesn't know how to handle yet. And that's kind of what this looked like to me. He was trying very hard at his plan A, which was to get the fight to the ground and like do something there. And when that was kind of shut down and it didn't last long in that second round, like, you know what I mean? And it always seems to me, like you said about Raul Rosas Jr., is you don't want to get your experience in the UFC as you go on. That's what it felt like happened there. He had to learn some lessons in a real fight that goes on his record here.
That's the thing. It's like I think he went into this fight. I think he's now, I believe now he's 8-0, or sorry, I should say 7-1. But I believe he went into the fight 7-0, and I'm like, dude, what is he now? He's like got 2 fights in the UFC. I'm on the UFC. Oh, he's 8-1. All right, so
yeah,
still less than 10 fights, and you're already in UFC. I mean, again, there are going to be cases where that's totally fine. But a donk who calls himself the Pink Panther and looks like the Ibiza final boss with a weird ponytail like the Who's of Whoville at the top of his head. It's like, brother, you're going to get washed doing this shit. Like, you're not ready for this at all. That was a strange one to me.
That was strange.
I don't know what to say about the fight that we all knew was going to go real badly. But it went real badly. You summed it up
perfect. You're like, well, he comes down. Now he's dehydrated with a chinny, and I'm like,
yeah, here it is. It's Iwo Baranevsky, I'm sure, or Baranewski. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, against Austin Lane. Austin Lane has been I'm not even sure what on the regional scene has happened to him, But in Contender Series in 2018, he got viciously KO'd. He got viciously. There was a could not continue, or I guess he had eye poked Justin Tafa. He rematches him, gets knocked out in a minute and 22 seconds. He then has a fight against Jonathan Deniz. He gets knocked out, KO. He then has a fight against Mario Pinto. He gets knocked out. He has a fight against Vitor Petrino. He gets choked out. And then he drops down against this dude who is, I think, limited, but, heavy-handed and certainly willing to knuckle up. Why did they make this fight? What was the point of making this fight? I genuinely don't get it.
I don't either, other than if they were saying, like, all right, Austin, you got one more chance, but we're going to put you against this dude who knocks everybody out in the first round, so good luck. And then that's how it played out. Now they can say sayonara. Because I don't really, like, we've talked about this before. Sometimes the quality of the fighters themselves is just not, it's not where it used to be. And Austin Lane is in that, to me, like, he just shouldn't be in the UFC, and I don't need to see him keep getting knocked out to prove that point.
Dude, I was making this point on Twitter the other day. People were being like, how is a guy like this allowed on the roster? He's got 7 losses, 2 wins. So he's 2-7 in the UFC, dating all the way back to 2018. And it's like, well, understand something. The UFC, and no one does, obviously, if the UFC doesn't, but like, let's just talk about UFC. UFC does not have a roster that can make 43 weeks of 7-hour events and not get filler in a bunch of different directions. This is merely one kind of filler. There's other kinds of filler that you can use. There's no, like, you could maybe do 43 weeks, Chuck, if you did them all like UFC White House, 5-6 fights.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you want
I'd be fine with that.
7-hour events, Austin Lanes are going to show up left and right.
100%. And I mean, at least we were talking about this before. At least it wasn't just a decision where that there's no hope of any kind of finish, right? Like this was more like what we were talking about with the Bellator prelims, where this guy would get in there and they get starched, they'd take him out on a stretcher and throw the next guys in. Yeah. It was more like that, which is unusual for the UFC, but that's how it felt. I mean, but it's just also like, if you're going to hold the UFC as the highest bar in the sport, I mean, it's at some point you just can't do that. There are certain guys that are glaringly out of their league. And I feel like that's where we're at with Austin here.
Yeah, I mean, quality control is a function of revenue control at this point, and the two are not expressly related in ways I wish they were. Okay. Oh, anything else on this main card? No, I think that's about it. All right, let's talk about our friends at DraftKings here very quickly before we get on to the rest of the show. DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook for live betting. Oops, excuse me, I lost my train. Here we go. For live betting is built for March. Yes, the month we are in. The tournament is unexpected. Rewards are guaranteed. DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering the most generous rewards in the market. With DraftKings, the #1 sportsbook for live betting, you're not betting what might happen, you're betting what's happening. New to DraftKings, bet just $5 and get 200 in bonus bets instantly. Here's what you donks are going to do. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code COMBAT. That's combat with a K. To turn $5 into 200 in bonus bets instantly. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer. All right, Chuck, let's talk about the rest of the UFC London card. This is now the prelims. And as I mentioned before, this is a case of high highs and very low lows. Let's start with the highs. Very simple question. Was Mason Jones versus Axel Sola, is that a fight of the year contender?
Man, I was thinking about this, and I think it is so far. Obviously, you're young in the year, but you had a couple of components there. Being in England, and I think that crowd really kind of, you could feel that there was a big energy around it, and a lot of times that will translate. If it was at the Apex, for instance, this you may not have felt, and you probably, of course, would not feel that kind of energy. But the fact that both dudes just stood in there, man, and just did that. And you always get like, it's just like the Gustafsson Jones thing where they're in the hospital afterwards. These guys afterwards are like, they're hugging each other and they're showing you like that it was all sportsmen and they're like, they love each other for going to battle. I love when you get this kind of matchup, man, where they're just like, let's see if you can last in my wheelhouse long, and we'll just keep doing that until the fight ends.
Man, Sola was one of these guys that people in Europe had told me about. They're like, coming out of. For folks who don't know, Aries FC is a French promotion. Dude, Aries produces a ton of top prospects. That's a promotion. Cage Warriors is another. Octagon is another. Aries, you want to keep your eye on them. They got a lot of hammers coming out of there. Dude, Sola looked enormous.
He was big comparative, yeah.
Because Mason Jones is about a right size, maybe slightly undersized lightweight, but not by much, right? And look at Sola. He just looks like another weight class above him. Hits him with a spinning back fist in the first round, clearly takes it. Jones, to me, Chuck, looked like he was physically outmatched for sure.
Yeah.
But just had so much dog
That's
and
I saw you say that. That's
craft. So that marriage of dog and craft, you could see it was enough to overcome some of those physical differences.
You were mentioning like Dolidze and Fluffy. Like I always wonder when you see guys in this kind of fight, you're like, how many do you have in you like this? Because some guys have a lot. They have a big amount. They can just go in there and just throw down recklessly, you know. And I like there was skill to this, but I mean just recklessly in terms of self-preservation. You're not overly concerned with how you're going to feel later or tomorrow or like a year or 2 years, whatever it is. Dude, that dog in him just doesn't let him stop. You know, I thought that was why when you see something like that unfold, right, where a guy is getting hurt, but then he's still the one dictating terms afterwards, and you see that kind of fight is always the plot kind of switching back and forth. It seems like it's teetering on the edge. That's when you get these fight of the year type conversations. Is this when guys look like they cannot sustain something and yet they do? But man, Mason Jones to me, like I don't know how often he can do that. Because I don't know if you can get up for a fight and be like, I'm going to put it all, I will die for this fight. Some guys have that a couple of times in their career, but that felt to me like one of his one of his cards he used. All right, here's one of the moments I'm going to put it all out there. I don't have many of these, but here's one of those, you know.
Long Island, this fight, tremendous fucking skill in this one.
I did just say earlier that Danny Silva was my favorite fight of the I meant favorite finish of the night. This was obviously the best fight of the night. Look at the scar on his face. They put stitches. This is some anime reference. I don't know what that figure is there, but either way, look at that fucking scar, dude.
Do you know what that scar reminds me of? Actually, the one I'm going to reference is worse than this one, but they're both pretty fucking bad. Do you remember the scar that Nick Diaz had after fighting Takanori Gomi?
Oh, yeah.
He had to get 16 stitches on the inside of the cut and then another 16 just to close it, right? So there was the tissue underneath had to be bound, and then the flesh or the
it's
skin
unusual
itself.
to be there. It's usually like, you know, you'll see something above the brow or whatever, but it's unusual to see that deep of a cut below the eye.
And it was from those knees that Mason kept throwing.
Yeah,
he just kept adding them to the end of the combinations, and it kept working and kept working. So Sola, one of those guys to me, clearly has a lot of potential, but some seasoning to do as well. I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. We're talking about Mason, but like that was some newfound respect for him too, man, because his fight early, like a couple of fights he's had, relatively easy in terms of like how he's able to go. So like you didn't know how I didn't know if he'd be able to have this kind of fight, kind of with the hype he's had a little bit. So that was cool to see too. I mean, I agree with you. I think he's got a bright future. He loses probably nothing in terms of the perception of what he's able to do, right?
No, just needs to make sure he kind of works on. He couldn't keep Mason Jones off of him.
Yeah,
that is. I cannot tell you how often I'm watching that in tape these days. Guys who can move, guys who can land, but fundamentally they can't keep a guy from encroaching upon them. And Sola, even though he was the bigger physical guy, it just tells you the level of skill that Mason Jones had to overcome that. Like the fact that Mason Jones was landing knees at all for a guy who had a longer reach and was kind of powerful just sort of indicates like,
and southpaw, like, which is harder to sometimes to deal with.
But, yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, man. God, fucking Jesus. Just fucking get rid of heavyweight, dude. Curtis Blades, I think, got mad at me on IG when I suggested this, but like, I don't know. We can make.
Well, if we get rid of him, we don't have to hear his criticisms anymore. You can just.
Well, I like Curtis. I think like the thing about Curtis Blades is this would not apply to him because Curtis is obviously talented enough where doesn't apply to him. But like it's like Curtis, you can't be that mad at me, bro. Because look at the fucking crop around you. Mario Pinto got a win over Felipe Franco, and dude, Grabaka Hitman again, who is kind of like a very reliable measurement of quality, was like, even I've never heard of this guy, and Pinto couldn't put him away. What is there to say about this fight? I don't even know.
One of Pinto's wins was against Austin Lane. I mean, so that's the only thing you can say about it. I mean, I don't know if you had an expectation on this fight.
A little bit.
I did.
Mario Pinto had a little bit. Yes,
he looks the part too. He does look the part. I was like, so I guess I guess I did too. But there's always this in the back of your mind, like, I mean, these days, like heavyweight, there's always in the back of your mind it's going to be a dud. And yeah, I didn't feel like he didn't do himself any favors. He got the win, but like I just, there's not going to be any buzz coming off his name.
Man, I saw this fight and I was like, bro, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
Like, can there possibly be a heavyweight prospect can we get a heavyweight prospect in MMA who doesn't have a criminal future or history and
good luck.
Doesn't love the N-word and is also good at fighting? Can we get that? That is apparently very, very difficult to find.
That's a pretty heavy checklist.
It's a heavy Nathaniel Wood, to me, scored a really nice victory. It was via decision, which I don't think is going to help his stock too much, but in Losane Kaita is, I guess, how you pronounce it. Kaita, double champ out of Octagon coming into this. Very good fighter. It certainly made it a little bit interesting down the stretch at times, but Wood, quality win. I just don't know what it does for him on the prelim card, Chuck.
It almost feels like he fills a good role for these London cards because, he goes in there. It's always such a national pride, and he puts on a show, and it's a decision. I think, we're talking about Evloev, but like going back to, what is it, 2018 is the last time he had a finish in a fight. Then it was not far behind him. I think it's 2019. So it's like one of those things. He started off pretty fast in the UFC, had some nice finishes early on, and since then had nice performance, and you can tell that he wants to put the guys away, but he just can't get it done. It's like that's a similar frustration we were talking about. But a good performance, and again, what's the cat's name he was just fighting? Keita? How do you say his name?
They pronounce it on the broadcast as Losane Kaita.
Kaita, okay, but he doesn't check the boxes we just talked about. I think they said he was in prison for like 4 months for fighting illegally. So. I mean, thank you for that. I probably should.
It was a split decision. That he kind of had to earn it, but I did think that Wood was the rightful guy. Like the right guy won to me.
I thought he won
in the end. Now those were the top 3 fights. It was Pinto versus Franco, Wood versus Kaita, and then Jones versus Sola. And again, Jones Sola, no complaints at all. Tremendous action. But dude, after that, why? Okay,
you're going to talk about your boy Shamrock.
Shamrock got his shit rocked. I mean, he got whooped up on in that one. Antonio Tricoli genuinely might be the worst fighter in the UFC. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, I don't know what he's doing there. Your boy Long Island, Brando Pericic, he got a winner.
I told you he was going to get him out of there quick, and he did. I mean, it was definitely the least aesthetically pleasing finish of the night. It was just like whatever. And Louis Sutherland, man, he's got big belly, but my boy getting it done, Luke. You gotta root for the Aussies.
I don't. I mean, I don't have to root against him, but I have to root for him. The only one that was a little bit interesting to me was the Chanel Dyer win over Havana Oliveira. She did it in the second round. Dyer had a tough ass fight on Contender Series and lost it, but I think is genuinely a pretty decent fighter. Real quick before I throw it to you, we have video of her. She won one of the bonuses. Let's take a look.
Performance tonight, Ewo and Dyer. And
oh my God! Yes! 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 Yes!
It's good for her. Like I said, she had a tough fight on Contender Series. She had, but dude, those bottom 4 fights again. I appreciate what Dyer was able to do. why are these fights happening at UFC? Why?
I will only say in her defense, like I've had Pizzi, at the crack. He is high on her eventually becoming a champion. So if somebody actually tells,
he's hot on crack. No,
yes, he is. Yeah, he'd admit to that. But like you see somebody like that, and you'll pay a little bit of attention. I have to say that Muay Thai clinch that she got, like that she had there, like it reminded me of Anderson Silva Franklin for a minute, like ramming
a little
those
bit,
knees
yeah.
up. Yeah. So I mean, that was again, it's not the highest quality of fight, and but I was happy for her. Who was the one that was like, "Give me a bonus, I'm broke." I'm broke.
That was Danny Silva.
That was Danny Silva. I was like, I couldn't remember
on the main card. Yeah,
it's never a good look, is it? Like every time somebody does this, I'm like, you feel like the UFC would almost be like, "Hey guys, please don't say that you're broke on there." I remember they used to kind of put a mandate, or at least a very strongly suggested, like, please don't talk about your full-time jobs. Because I remember Shane Carwin when he was fighting. Remember this? He was fighting Brock Lesnar, and like, please don't tell people you're a full-time engineer with a day job and you just do this as a kind of lark or whatever it was. But this strikes me even worse because you're like, I know he hasn't had a ton of fights, but you've had fights in the UFC, and to say things like that, it's always like, oh my God, man. Especially right now, where everybody's kind of scrutinizing fighter pay.
I forget his first name, but I think his last name was Delorme. He was a Canadian guy, and this was during the Fox era. I remember he like did Ariel used to do those backstage at the time. Remember?
Yeah.
And we were at MMA Fighting at the time, and together. And I remember I got one of his videos because what Ariel would do back then is the guys would come back and he would do the interview for Fox, and then he would do another one for us at MMA Fighting, and then Casey would send me the video. We would have to get the video up. And I watched it, and he was like, "Yeah, my water got turned off. I haven't even had water at my house." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Fuck,
dude, that's
like
crazy,
that's another level of broke. You don't even have indoor plumbing anymore. Holy shit, man!"
And I've heard stories like that too. Like I've heard them throughout the course of time. Sometimes from veterans, at least when I say veterans, like at least like 5-fight type guys, who've had plenty of fights, and you're like, what? How does that happen, man? It's crazy.
I don't know. Let's talk about the other main, not main event, but main event too, but the other kind of big-ish event that took place in, Europe. A lot happening over there in Europe. But the other big organizational event.
Was it in Ibiza?
See, that's the thing. Like, I learned South American Spanish, so I'm just going to ignore how the Spanish do it.
All right.
It's a really weird thing to hear because people think it's just on the Z, and it's not. It's on several different letters.
Yeah.
Like the verb decir, D-E-C-I-R. They say decir.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I feel like you know better than me, so I'm different.
Or also like Barcelona. I'm like
Barcelona. Yeah.
Look at me, Spaniards. I'm not doing that. Okay. I'm doing Barcelona. It's they invented the language. Don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care. All right. Let's talk about this. Speaking of Spain, by the way, and they went to Madrid, my favorite city maybe in the entire world. So the PFL goes to Madrid, and in the main event, Chuck, Costello Van Steenis finishes off Fabian Edwards via elbows. Look, we can't show the video, but you can see here. So let me set this up. Edwards is going for a takedown on Van Steenis on the fence and kind of gets not stuck in this position, but he's, what would you say, Chuck, hanging out there a little bit, just hanging out a little bit. And Van Steenis starts to land elbows that are doing damage, and they go uncontested. And so he just keeps doing it, and he wins not wins the belt, but defends the belt as a consequence of that. So we talked on Friday's show, Chuck, with Jed, who is probably high on meth when he does these shows, but nevertheless.
No probably to it.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I can get a contact high from meth off of his breath if you stand close enough.
I'm Dub T, and I really want to vape.
No, Long Island. Tell the people we have a soundboard now.
We do have a soundboard now, but again, I'm a one-man operation here, so it's a little.
You're doing
hard.
a good job.
I'm just staring at it, waiting for you guys.
Play the Dub T one.
I'm Dub T, and I really want to vape.
I'm Dub T, and I really want to vape. That's a real quote.
I love it.
That's so great. All right, but this is what look.
This one, man.
I'm going to pitch it to you, Chuck. I don't want to take away from Van Steenis, who is on the high of his fucking career. But does Fabian Edwards have some fight IQ issues? What do you think?
Well, I thought this very thing when he was when this happens, right? He's going to wrestle. Like I don't know. It was. Do you remember the fight? What was it? Gabriel Gonzaga versus Travis Brown, Same thing. It was like Gabriel Gonzaga got low. And he kept doing that.
No. Travis Brown versus Josh Barnett.
Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. I'm sure of it.
Okay. Because he started just like boom, boom. Same thing. It totally reminded me of that. Like where you're like, okay, dude, those are landing. And then all of a sudden you just see him crumpling. You're like, he's out. He's out from this thing. That was what it reminded me of. It was a, I don't know why the insistence was there. Like, and I'm like, sometimes you'll see this and like I say, there's poor decision making and something like that. I'm like, dude, either you've got a really bad game plan and you're sticking to it, or you're just not in the feel of what's going on. But that was not the way to go. Not in that kind of fight, right? They had a close fight the first time, so
yes.
So I mean, I didn't really think it would go down in some weird way like that. But I'm with you. It's kind of split. I think Van Steenis. It's crazy that he was an underdog. Long Island brought this up. Being in Spain and all that stuff, I really thought he was he should be the favorite in that fight, but dude, I didn't think it would go down like that. No,
dude, it's amazing to me how much fighters spend time in skill development, which of course I have no issue with as a general observation. But like, for example, you brought up Diego Lopez. We spent a lot of time, you and I, talking about in that rematch before Volk. It's like, dude, I'm a shit ass nobody. And I'm like, you need to cage cut. I can see it on tape. And then he goes in there and he doesn't do it. So like a big one is tactics. Like what are the tactics? What are the strategies? And like, are we watching tape to really understand? Are we funneling people not really to fight ending scenarios, but are we funneling them physically into different places in the cage to then pop them? I can tell you, like, for example, a guy like Eric Nixick, their whole system is built on moving people either directionally or, into certain places that they want to, to then do damage. They're thinking about physical location. The other one is just about, general best practices about what you want to do beyond, like, more generic or striking scenarios. So, like, for folks who didn't see this fight, the first fight between Van Steenis and Edwards was kind of a ho-hum affair, and largely even-ish on the feet. Maybe Van Steenis a little bit better, or at least landing bigger shots, maybe is a better way to put that, and then using some groundwork to kind of get ahead. In the rematch, it didn't look like that. Like, Edwards was doing really well on the feet. And he wasn't like crushing him or anything, but I thought he was the better guy on the feet.
Same.
And then he would just wrestle for no particular reason. And it's like, you got mounted and elbowed in the first fight. I'm not saying you had to like avoid the ground at all cost, but if you're winning on the feet, why are we even entertaining this mixing up position? Because it wasn't like Van Steenis was like blitzing and making it really dangerous for him. He was kind of just playing off the other side of that. And we had also said on Friday's MK Chuck, people ask me like, how would you describe Van Steenis' style? And it's like, I said this on Friday's MK. You can look up the tape. I was like, he's an opportunist.
Yeah,
he just kind of like is always like looking under rocks for worms, and then eventually he just tends to find one. He
the
is.
Johnny Eblen fight specifically, right?
And this one too.
Yeah.
Where Edwards is not transitioning through the position. He's like kind of hanging out there. So Van Steenis just looks down and goes, bonk, bonk, bonk. And then closes the show. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
There's nothing. One of the most frustrating things is that you see a guy having success on the feet that maybe is surprising himself with it sometimes. Like, you'll see this and like he's landing some bigger shots, but then he keeps resorting to like pushing on the cage and you're like, what are you doing? Separate, dude. You're doing fine. I've seen this. You too, man. Like we've seen this so many times. There's something just maddening about that, because you got to understand in real time your successes, even if you didn't think you were going to have them on some level, even if you didn't think you were going to find the success you're having. At some point you got to pivot and be like, no, I'm good right here. I think that this is where we should stay. But that was very bizarre for him to kind of default to the wrestling mindset when it clearly wasn't going to work there.
I don't say this to like dunk on a guy. I truly don't. But what I am going to say is, if you're in a fucking title fight and you're winning on the feet, and and again, it's not like, oh, you're winning, but he's scoring huge punches and you maybe want to mix it up. That's a little bit different, but like, he's not really scoring huge punches. And you decide to take it down. And then as you're taking it down, you're kind of static in a position. Dude, you deserve to lose. Straight up. In high-level MMA, if you're going to make those kinds of commitments, you deserve to lose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bring me joy to like dunk on Fabian Edwards, but I'm just trying to say, like, You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain kind of things you just can't get away with if you want to do special shit in MMA. And he didn't do that.
I mean,
So-
Van Steenis, if the whole thing was like in the Washington Generals sense of the Harlem Globetrotters series,
Yeah.
like, where it's like to kind of give him his moment in his home, his home, like where he lived for so long in Spain. Like, he certainly did that because that was kind of a gift in a weird way. And like Van Steenis is already riding this complete high from the Johnny. I talked to him before, like a month ago before all this, and it was like he was still as high on that fight as you could be, right? Like, he's talking about it like it's a movie. And I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, that's one of the crazy comebacks of the year and all that stuff. And to get this as his encore, good for him. You know what I mean? So you got to give him his flowers too on that level.
So funny, Van Steenis. We didn't see this, but someone sent it to me when Van Steenis made a promo package for PFL where he's at a desk and he's writing a love letter to the people of Spain. And he's narrating it in Spanish, and his Spanish is I wanted to see how good it was. It's native. It's really, really good.
Okay.
It's and he's got the Spanish accent too. But the reason why I was bringing this up is because obviously he's Dutch too, so he speaks English with a Dutch accent. Did you notice that I think I could be wrong about this, but the reporter who asked Dana the question that we played earlier, and Dana had to get the translation, he was getting translation of an English-speaking Dutch guy.
Oh my God.
He's like, I know you're speaking my language, but you have a Dutch accent. Can we get a guy who's got a goober accent like the rest of us? You know?
Oh man.
Anyway, if you haven't seen that piece, I'll send it to you after the show, Chuck. Of the PFL, the love letter,
I haven't
and he's
seen that.
writing it. He's writing it with like a quill-tipped pen in kind of this orangey mood lighting at like a big wooden desk, and
That's
then he's
funny.
narrating as he writes it. Dude, it's fucking sick. I was amazed by it.
And I mean that, you know what? Good for them. Like I think this was the first, like they said, the first time in Madrid where it was like a major organization going there. And I mean, dude, there's always a subtweet involved when you're like, hey, we're gonna go there. You guys have Ilia Topuria, right? Like, you have this guy, but we're gonna get there first. I always kind of appreciate that. You know what I mean? And the PFL's done that even with France, and some of the others. Like they've kind of been there first, and I can appreciate it. It looked like a fun environment, like a smaller room, but a fun environment.
Yeah. Well, Madrid is like maybe my favorite city in the whole world.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. They had about 6K in attendance. Now, it was not exactly a sellout. I don't think that's quite right. And it's not like they made a huge amount at the gate, but they had, I would call a decent attendance, including but not limited to a bunch of the players for Real Madrid. They had Vinny in attendance, Courtois, Fede Valverde. They had a bunch of, I think Rudiger was there as well. They had a bunch of them there, which was kind of cool. Their guy won. I'm not sure exactly what it means for PFL, Chuck, but do you have any feeling like PFL can't be upset about it? It seemed pretty good.
I thought it was pretty good, and also the other Van Steenis one, right? Like he got a knockout.
Yes,
I believe he was an underdog too. So in a crazy sense, I mean, it kind of went the way that you'd want it. In the sense, like we're talking about the UFC and the London fighters for the most part, except for Curtis Campbell. Like most of those guys were able to come through for their home thing. I mean, that always translates very nicely, right? Like when you have a homecoming, the guys who are supposed that you want to win kind of win. And it sets up nicely, too. I didn't want to have that situation where you don't get the Van Steenis-Eblen rematch at some point because, I mean, that's a big fight for them, right?
Right.
So,
right. Well, that brings us to Johnny Eblen, who fights this coming weekend at the PFL Pittsburgh. He put this up on IG after Van Steenis won. Hell yeah, let's run this back after I get a W next weekend. I got to tell you, now, we'll talk about this in the next topic, but if Eblen gets a W...
Yeah,
I like that fight. I'm kind of pumped for that rematch, to be honest with you.
I mean, I love when a dude like Van Steenis, he was, it's just like boom, he hit a jackpot on his last few dollars in that fight with Eblen, and then all of a sudden he's like on house money now, like he's won a lot of money. Now he's like, hey, I'm rolling big. Those guys sometimes can deliver because they get a big belief in themselves, and I think he's got that. And I mean, obviously, Johnny Eblen being the competitor he is, dude. Like if he gets by Bryan Battle, like obviously. You know that he's going to go into that fight like with some, piss and vinegar type thing. He's going to go in there to beat him. That should be fun.
Very quickly, AJ McKee got a fun but pretty solid win over Adam Boric. So we're talking about the right next move for him. He's 30 years old. I got to tell you, I don't know what appetite PFL has for McKee to fight Usman Nurmagomedov again, but I'd be cool with that.
Yeah,
I don't know about your opinion.
Who else? Who else could they put him with?
Let me pull up the rankings because I'm not even sure who's available.
That's what that's always the thing with the PFL. It's not like they have their cup is running over, you know.
Okay, so you've got Alfie Davis, who just got smoked.
Right.
Gadzi Rabadinov, I'm not sure. I think he lost recently. Archie Colgan is an interesting name. Nobody knows him, but he's undefeated.
I know who he is.
Paul Hughes sitting at 4. Alexander. Oh, this was at 45, I believe. So no, it wouldn't even be relevant. Why was I saying Usman? Never mind. I think this was at 45. You got Alexander Chablis, JJ Wilson, Natan Schultz. Now over at 45, where do they have AJ McKee? They got him sitting at 2. They got Timur Kizriev. I guess you could make that. Jesus Pinedo, but I don't know if there's much interest in that. Borch was sitting at 4. It looks like, honestly, it's a title shot against Kizriev, and then that's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, that's kind of where they're at with.
And that title is vacant, by the way. Kizriev would be the number one contender, but there's nobody else,
AJ McKee, after all these years, and he's still. It's crazy that he's 30 years old, by the way, because when we were covering his father not that long ago, and now his son is 30 years old. That's very strange.
I said Usman Nurmagomedov. It was Paul Hughes, which was the guy he had lost to. Please forgive me. Also, kind of. So I did wrong myself in real time. Also, kind of funny. We covered his dad's career.
Yeah.
For guys who did not cover his dad's career, he was famous for being like the most boring guy on any card he was ever on.
That's actually true. That's true.
If you saw him on the card, you'd be like, "Oh, here we go." You know what I mean? Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. That is it for topic number 4. So let's end on topic number 5. We kind of alluded to the fact that Johnny Eblen is fighting Bryan Battle this week at PFL Pittsburgh. By the way, PFL staff, they have to go from Madrid to Pittsburgh. Holy shit.
I noticed that, yes.
If half of them don't put a gun in their mouth, I'll be surprised.
Your least favorite city, your favorite city to your least favorite city.
I actually don't hate Pittsburgh, but it's
it's better than people advertise. I mean,
it is. It certainly is. But like going from fucking Madrid to Pittsburgh, like, holy shit.
I remember Dan Hardy was basically like, yeah, we're going to be in Pittsburgh next week. I'm like, wow, what a juxtaposition that is.
It's like, I don't even know. I couldn't even, okay. Anyway, we'll come back to that. But let's actually talk about this, because we actually have this weekend, Chuck, dueling middleweight main events. UFC Seattle will feature Izzy. You can see the poster here, taking on Joe Pyfer. We've kind of talked about some of the dimensions of this fight, which, by the way, I like this fight. I think it's an interesting fight. And then on the PFL side, by the way, you've got Dalton Ross to take it on Impa Kasanganay in the co-main, but the main event is Johnny Eblen taking on Bryan Battle. This, of course, will be Bryan Battle's PFL debut. He did have that one fight, I believe, in dirty boxing, but here he is back in high-level MMA. So the question is not which one is more relevant for the top end of MMA. It's obviously going to be Izzy and Joe Pyfer, right? Especially if Joe wins. It kind of really upsets the apple cart for a guy who's ranked, I think, 4 or 5 in that UFC middleweight division. That's not my question.
Okay.
My question is not that. My question is, on pure excitement terms, which has the biggest chance to deliver? And let me set this up, if I may, Chuck.
All right.
Joe Pyfer is going to be hunting for a big knockout. But we all know Izzy has a way of stifling that if he wants to. Now, he couldn't do it against Imavov, but can Izzy play the touch and go game, the feinting game if he wants to? Yes, of course. On the other end, Bryan Battle is pretty reliable for action, but Johnny Eblen might wrestle him into oblivion, or he might not. So there's these questions of the kind of guys who are older, more established, having ways to smother a surging contender. Which one is going to deliver more?
Well, as much as I love the Bryan Battle, basically, flying into flight in his new promotion and getting a title shot, the Johnny Eblen wrestling factor weighs in there, because you could see a scenario where that could turn into a patterned fight where it's like rinse and repeat for the whole time. Now, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm thinking it could have like some fireworks, but I feel like the other fight, like you're mentioning with Izzy coming back from, 3 losses in a row. He's and obviously,
I'm not sure
like,
if it's in a row. I'll look it up.
Okay, so he's like, he's obviously like down the stretch here. This is a guy who we held at the very highest level of the sport, and he's getting a guy. I think this is strategic in the sense, like you mentioned, Joe Pyfer's a kind of a headhunter. He was going to be looking for that knockout. He'll be coming forward. I do think that Izzy's like most majestic performances, and you've probably looked at the tape a lot with him, is when he's able to kind of react to a lot of stuff. And I feel like he's going to have those chances. And we know when he does that, big things happen. Or at least that it has happened for him. So if he's going to get the opportunity to put away Joe Pyfer and kind of right some of the wrongs, I think he's going to take it. So to me, there's just that explosive component, like of when they come together, maybe they play into each other's strengths a little bit, is what's going to make that fun.
Can you believe that the last win that Izzy had, it was not only in April of 2023, so almost 3 years ago.
Oh my God.
But then it was the Poetan comeback win.
Oh, when he kind of just bit down and like counted, like boom, and hit him on the fence. Yeah,
like that super back up against the wall triumphant moment. You know, that like he was on a huge high. He's not won since then.
Man, if I was on Long Island's trivia show and this had been brought up, I'd be like, there's at least one victory since then. That feels like so long ago. That was so long ago, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
Long Island, which fight has of the two dueling main events for middleweight this weekend? Which one has the higher possibility of action?
I mean, I'm just so intrigued by the Izzy Pyfer matchup that I can't choose Eblen back.
I like that fight better.
Yo, but these are also going directly. I don't know what time the main card starts for PFL, but if I'm not mistaken, these are going directly head to head. Like,
yeah, PFL making a
not even
mistake with that one.
Yeah, I'm probably not even going to catch Eblen Battle unless it happens to go after
they
the
get
UFC
two screens,
card.
my friend.
Well, yeah, Chuck. I mean, I will catch it. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it's so stupid on their end. Stick to Fridays or something, because I would definitely tune in if it was on Friday.
Yeah, 10 p.m. start on ESPN2.
I did not realize that.
For the PFL card and for the
UFC's
upcoming UFC card, the Fight Night card, that has a
8 p.m. I think main card.
5 p.m. for the you know what? Here, let me tell you, because I want to get this right actually. So give me just 1 second. If you go to UFC.com/schedule, they'll tell you there. So the fight card for that one is Jesus Christ. Screen. 8 p.m. start. So they won't necessarily overlap. Okay. By the main event anyway, there should be enough of a difference. I got to tell you, I don't love middleweight main events as a rule, but the UFC one I think is actually very interesting. And not for nothing, for PFL, that's a pretty decent scrap too. Yeah, I kind of like that one.
The Bryan Battle, like just picking him up, because dude, you tell me, did the guy not like? I feel like his star power like tripled after he beat Kevin Jousset in France, and he had that big mic moment. He sounded like a pro wrestler, and he's like, hey, "Let me hear it," you know. And he's like, and then obviously he's missed weight and he's had all these things, but it didn't really hurt his brand and sense of like, you know, he goes over to Dirty Boxing. I felt like there was this special eye on him. Like they did a good job of sort of showing you what happened there, and he ends up here. I'm intrigued by this. I feel like that's kind of the component. Like if it was just Johnny Eblen against somebody else on the roster, for instance, it'd probably feel like, it's a PFL event. This actually makes it feel very different to me as having Bryan Battle on that. I think the dude has some talent. I'm like, so I feel like that this is a really fun fight.
Well, that's just it. It's like, first of all, the fans have definitely responded to him. I started getting questions about him in my live chat, and usually the questions are only about like, you know, Islam or Ilya or something like that, right? And so like when a guy who's like getting brought up, I was actually kind of surprised by it. And to be honest with you, I certainly grant that he injects some life into this fight and this promotion. It's a great signing, both because he needed to rehab his image a little bit based on the weight miss, and also PFL could use a guy like that. So it's a great pairing. But like this is a great opportunity for him too, because it's like I'm not totally convinced he's like a super good middleweight, you know?
Right.
But you beat Johnny Eblen, and I'll believe that you're a super good middleweight, or certainly deserving of top 10 respect.
They both those fights we're talking about have that kind of component, right? Because I mean, Joe Pyfer's proved that he can go in there and win, but I mean, now you're fighting a guy who I still feel like his mystique is still in place to a certain extent, right? Like he's still that guy. This would be a big moment for him. And if it doesn't happen, I feel like Izzy Adesanya then enters the conversation in this big way again, even if it's kind of late in his career. I mean, I love those types of crossroads, you know, where it's like guy coming up, guy supposedly going down, but it could divert and go the other way. Like you got him in both fights there.
I got to say, there's not many times you could book two dueling non-title middleweight main events, and I'd be like, these are great. You know what I mean?
That's a great point, dude.
this one kind of works out. It kind of works out.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for our top five. We'll of course have coverage of both of these events. We'll preview them on Friday's MK. But for right now, let's go to where you guys get to ask us questions. It's time for DMs from Donks.
That sound.
I'll just never get used to that ever. All right. Question 1 from our friend Emery Nick 6. Why has Jeremy Stevens been able to do one-off fights in the UFC? Fought Mason Jones in UFC, then Mike Perry in BKFC, now back to fighting King Green. I think it's because they just like him, Chuck.
I think so too. I always think back to like Jeremy Stevens was the guy who. Do you remember like the Minnesota where he was like he gets arrested and Dana White's spinning. He's gonna fight, and they're trying to like bail him out before this fight. Do you remember when all this went down like 10 years ago?
Yes.
So I mean, it goes back that far. I feel like they've always had a big respect and love for Jeremy Stevens because he's a dude who doesn't say no. He goes in there and he brawls, win or lose, and they have special. There are guys like that they hold a special place for. So if there was some exception to it, and I don't know his contractual setup, but yes, he would be one of those guys.
Question number 2 from OG91 Pixel. How good is I can never say his name right. Iman Ghazaliev from One Championship Muay Thai spelled wrong. Jesus, the kid is a monster. Long Island, do we have any assets to show this guy at all?
No.
Okay. Have you seen him, Chuck?
I have not, but I
forget his first name. So if you guys haven't seen it,
I have heard people talking about him though. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan wants to blow him, I think. But that's okay. If you're going to blow somebody, this is a good guy to blow, I suppose. He is a Dagestani guy who does the 4-ounce Muay Thai stuff in One Championship, and he is in there. He just beat Nongo. He's blowing people's brains out, and he looks the part. He's wiry, but you can still tell well muscled. Throws heavy leather, good combinations. He's technical. He's slick. He's a devastating finisher, dude. He is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
and awesome. And we associate the Dagestani guys with being more wrestlers, and then we'll say, oh yeah, some of them can strike well. Well, here we found a guy who can strike his ass off.
I'm compelled, man. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, if you haven't seen him yet, you should make an effort. He is.
And is he going to be? Is he fighting MMA or is it just what? So where's he at right now? Is he
Muay Thai is my only
Muay Thai?
understanding.
Okay,
yeah. Maybe I haven't looked at his record more closely. Maybe he's got some MMA fights or something. But it's hard because you're like, oh, how excited should I be about a kickboxing product? There's something a little different about him.
Especially from Dagestan.
Just to see a Dagestani guy with the Amish beard go in there and then just
I didn't think that was allowed actually in Dagestan.
What? Being
Muay Thai. I didn't think that you could. I thought you had to if you didn't wrestle, and sit in the sauna afterwards.
Well, you know what? I bet on some level he can wrestle a little bit, whether he's done it in any kind
That's
of
why I was asking
sense.
if he's doing MMA. That would be now. It's like that becomes the compelling thing too. Does he have a ground game?
Let me see. Ghazaliev 1. Hold on. So it's Asadullah Iman Ghazaliev. I'm sure I'm saying that the worst way imaginable. 22 years old, out of Dagestan. Dude, he is beating the fuck out of people. It's insane.
Love it, man.
What he's been showing up and then doing. So his record from what I'm seeing here, 12 wins. He's completely undefeated. 8 of them KOs or TKOs. And the ones that are decisions are mostly in his early career. He hasn't gone to a decision. Well, he had a bunch in. You know how they'll do tournaments,
Yeah.
But his last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have all been finishes. Yeah, he's.
Would you favor him against a guy like Winged Sea, like somebody like that, or
dude? I do not understand why the internet gets behind. I understand why the internet gets behind weirdos. What I don't understand is getting behind weirdos who obviously aren't good at fighting.
I know
it's like the most insane thing. So people are like, "Oh, Butterbean wasn't good." Butterbean,
I know,
was good at a certain level,
exactly,
and he had dynamite knockout power.
Yeah.
All right, next from DG, whatever the fuck. All right, why is the women's bantamweight division allowed to come to a complete stop while Kayla Harrison heals from an injury? John Jones was vilified for holding the division for a full year when he was injured. Chuck, I have an answer, but I'd like to hear yours.
Well, I would just say that on whole, that women's, because I do the pound for pound rankings at Uncrowned, and so you update them every month, and there will be 9 women on there that have no news of anything coming up or anything. They hold them idly out for long periods of time compared to the men. I mean, it's just the way it is, man. It's a very strange thing. But I don't know, I don't know what you would do, if you were to expound on that. I don't know what the suggestion would be, in terms of, you saying have another title fight or something in between, like, or have an interim. I don't know what the question is in that
Just
sense.
keep the division moving.
Just keep it going.
You know?
I mean, well, let's hear your explanation. What do you think's going on here?
In the words of Habib Nurmagomedov, who cares, brother? Who cares? In all seriousness,
that's economy of words right there. I like it.
In the principle of it, the question is correct. Like, this is unfair. And my view is, if the UFC is not going to keep these people moving, they should let them take fights elsewhere. You know, I do believe that. On the other hand, I just think you got to look at this realistically and say there is a certain level of prestige and physical, or I should say, there's a level of prestige and like representation about what the heavyweight division means.
Right.
And if you begin to fuck with that, it has a bigger significance than for a division that I'm not even sure should exist.
Right. Yeah, nobody noticed. Like, that person noticed, but like not too many fans really notice when there's an idleness going on with the women's bantamweight versus heavyweight, which is traditionally people pay attention to.
Yeah. All right. Next, from I Read Rayton 916. Have you seen or heard the rumors of Gable Steves? He put Stevenson. It's Stevenson versus JDS. Even Mohamed Mokaev versus AJ McKee for the Netflix show in May. No. But I did I had heard rumors of Gable Stevenson versus JDS. I don't know if they're legit or not. I honestly don't know. I'm a consumer in that way. What I will say is, it seems interesting that you had Mohamed Mokaev kind of teasing a fight that Jake Paul was signing at the same time that one just released Adriano Martins, their former champion.
Oh,
that is dude. Let me just say it outright. Mohamed Mokaev versus Adriano Martins is a legit fight.
Yeah,
legit.
Wouldn't that, like, I mean, that almost goes against the motif of this MVP because it's that good, right? Like, you'd almost say, oh, and now you got like a very vital feeling fight on that card. Maybe that would be the right move, is to do something like that. I am anxious to find out what's going on with Mokaev on that fight.
Mokaev, to me, like, when he was released, you know, I was like, he needs to be released because he can beat people with his grappling, but he can't do anything else. He needs some seasoning. But after watching what he's been up to, I would like to see the UFC bring him back. I think now he's a little bit more ready to do something with that. It could make flyweight even hotter than it already is.
Yeah.
I hope they find a way to do that.
I mean, they should, right? Like, that division is better than it has been in a while, right? Because we were doing our division, and like, so you look at it and you're like, wow, there's a bunch of guys up at the top. Now imagine plugging him back into the mix. It'd be a lot of fun, man.
I think there's one more. From Flannels and Jits. Did you catch any of the NCAA wrestling championships this year? I did. Thoughts on the level of these younger athletes, especially guys like Jax Forrest coming in and winning the NCAA titles as a true freshman? Dude, check this shit out, Chuck. Check this shit out. There was a guy, a Hispanic kid, who wrestled for Oklahoma State. I forget his name, but he wrestled early in the championship evening. So, you know, they do the finals for all the weight classes on Saturday. A Hispanic kid. He wins it, okay? So he becomes, in that moment, for Oklahoma State, but for any college, the first wrestler in 79 years to win the NCAAs as a true freshman. Okay?
Wow.
So not a red shirt, but a true one. Then in the main event that night, I think it was either 125 or 133, I forget the exact weight class, also for Oklahoma State, is a kid named Jax Forrest, who goes, which is, by the way, just the whitest fucking name. I mean, if he wasn't going to be a wrestler, he was going to go win American Ninja Warrior, you know.
It's a great grandson of Nathan Bedford Forrest. All right.
Yeah. So Jax Forrest goes in there and becomes, so remember, 79 years had to elapse before someone could do it. And then later on that night, one of his teammates in a different weight class does the exact same thing. And I'll up the ante.
Wow.
That kid, Jax Forrest, was in high school earlier this year. He left high school early, somehow got eligibility to go and wrestle for Oklahoma State, and then ran the fucking table on them and won a national title as a true freshman. Dude, what the fuck?
These are Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
What a bad time for DC to step aside. I mean, this is like,
I know.
You think you'd want to be on that one. That's crazy, man.
But can you believe that? Like, it's something doesn't
wild.
happen for 79 years and then it happens twice in the same night, you know?
That is wild. I wish I could have, I should have paid more attention to it, man, with everything going on. It always falls by the wayside, and then you'll see it like people talking about it on social media. I'm like, because you just kind of get caught up in the other stuff.
Also, the interesting part was Jax Forrest wrestled, I forget the other kid's name, but the kid he wrestled in the main event was a kid out of Ohio State. This kid out of Ohio State had not given up a takedown all year.
Yeah.
What do you think Jax Forrest did?
Takes him down.
Took him fucking down.
That's
also,
crazy.
the last part I'll say about this
That's
is,
awesome, though, man.
you know, the dominant team more generally is Penn State. Cale Sanderson is obviously their coach. However, the Oklahoma State coach is David Taylor, who was kind of big when we were at MMA fighting together, who went on to win an Olympic gold and national, you know, NCAA national title. And he's now the head coach at Oklahoma State. So there's a budding rivalry there, but Penn State has won the team title, like the best wrestling team in the country, 13 of the last 15 years.
That's incredible.
That's fucking insane. That's insane.
That's gotta, I mean, unless you're talking like women's volleyball or, you know, it's got to be something where like all the concentration is in one room, like one university. That's so hard to do anymore. You know what I mean? Like to just have that kind of like dynasty that runs that long. It almost does. I mean, I would guess that it almost happens it doesn't happen in any other sport really.
Yeah. And again, your only real threat is a guy who used to be part of your dynasty, who's now an offshoot of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it came from an alternate system exactly. All right. We'll do fan subs in just a minute, but let's talk about our friends at Cuervo. We, of course, are going to be back in studio April 8th to do a pregame preview around UFC 327. I just want to remind everyone, from face-off to final decision, Fight Night delivers the adrenaline and Cuervo the energy to match it. Whether you're hosting your crew at home or catching the action at the bar, Cuervo brings the good vibes that turn every round into a celebration. From margaritas to palomas, every main event simply tastes better with the world's most iconic tequila. No matter who walks out with the belt, with Cuervo in hand, you're already celebrating like an undisputed champion. For every round, keep it fun, keep it Cuervo, and keep it locked with us. April 8th, we'll be back in studio. Thanks to our friends at Cuervo. We'll do a pregame preview. We'll enjoy some there, have some good chats about the fights, and hopefully you guys can enjoy us and have a good time with us. Okay? Big thanks to our friends at Cuervo. All right, with that out of the way, let's now go to fan subs. Let's do it.
All right.
You've got mail.
Viewers.
Now, Chuck, I'll tell you that the viewers here and the fans of MK, they like you a lot, so they don't meme you very much. But I want to remind everyone, he's up for grabs. You could insult Chuck just like you could insult me.
Come on, Luke.
And if you do, if you're good at it, whether it's me or it's him or whoever it ends up being, if you're the best one this month, we're going to send you a free signed poster. So email the show with your fan subs, morningkombat@gmail.com. That's going to be the place to send them all, to reach the show more generally, but for sure for fan subs. All right, what's the first one we got? Let's see. Let me read it here too. A RJ sent a meme. It says, Long Island Luke's girlfriend when she finds out there are no fights this weekend.
I'm feeling these margaritas, Brian Campbell.
Long Island, did you see your girlfriend this weekend?
Yeah, it was my birthday this weekend. So
that's right. That's right. What'd you do for it?
We went and got drunk, you know, just a bunch of drinking and stuff. And now I'm sick, you know, it's just, you know, the fruits of my labor. But it was a good weekend. Good weekend. So no.
Has the snow melted in Long Island?
Yeah, it's been gone for like a week or two now. We've been good.
Damn, I still have like a little pile here, man. It's
For real?
crazy. Yeah, because it was such a big drift. It was like a 10-foot mountain where they had been plowing it. That's still probably 2 foot. You know,
I was gonna say they called it snowcrete.
Yeah,
here,
that's what
because
this
it
is.
froze.
Yeah,
they had to take a bunch down by the Capitol and put it all in a parking lot. I drove by like this weekend. It's still there.
Yeah,
that's
like,
crazy,
Jesus.
Man. That's wild.
All right, this is second one is from Jim. Chuck. Jim says, "Good morning, donks. Here's a fun one for you. I don't have the creativity to use AI and impose BP doing the foul shit he partakes in on a daily basis, but nevertheless, this one made me laugh. Keep up the great work, Long Island Luke. You're a legend." It says, "Every time I'm watching MMA and my wife walks in the room."
I think he meant BC, right? Like I don't know what BP was. I think
I don't know who BP is either.
This would be up his he's a big north-south guy, right?
Oh yeah, especially at 115. Yeah, he's a huge north-south guy. All right, from Nick, it says, "Hola, boys. Here's a design I've spent a few days on that I'd love for you to use however you see fit. Much love from." Oh, look at this with the arrow through the head, King Donk. My nose is a little too thin for that one.
I appreciate that.
Oh wait, this is how we did it.
Yeah, this is him making it.
Oh, look at the teeth that
my nose looks like a you know what.
Looks like a potato head.
This is the time lapse. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm Dub T, and I really want to vape.
Yeah, this is a fair assessment. Love that. Very
pretty
good.
cool.
He sent another. Oh, this is the video. He did the both. Okay. All right. This is from Atomic Photoshop. Hey, Donks. Long time, first time. I was watching Friday's episode, and as much as I think Jed fits right into the MK universe, he seemed to be getting a little too comfortable with Luke on this one. Love the show and love the rotation of knowledgeable folks. MK all day. Let's see this.
Let's bang.
Do you expect that?
I don't know. Because I could see it. I'm a guy that you can get behind.
That'll be fun for as long as it lasts, which is to say probably not that long.
Unless one or both men come.
You
My
fucking
God,
whore.
that was great. Oh,
Dude,
man.
The internet will just tear you to pieces. You can say something like, oh, I helped this old lady walk across the street, and they'll turn you into some kind of,
Oh, that was good.
molesting demon or something. Also, making fun of Jed is very much encouraged on this show.
Yes.
So that part is okay. All right, this comes to us from Jesse. He writes, 2 displaced combat sports journalists during the Great Depression era of UFC as they search for job opportunities and dream of their own podcast. Their friendship is a rare bond in a world filled with mediocre fight cards and corporate greed, but their dream is ultimately shattered due to Bryan's need to fund his family's future, a growing vinyl collection, and monthly OnlyFans subscriptions. Also, no one dies at the end. Here it is, Of Mice and Men, a novel with real talk, like men do, written by one Long Island Luke.
I like it.
I haven't read Of Mice and Men in so long.
I was going to say, it was back in school,
like that, the Mice of Men or Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've dug into some.
I revisited Grapes of Wrath like as an adult. Like I like, but this now it's been like 15 years ago. But at some point I did reread it just to kind of refresh everything. It's a good book, man. I think you would actually like it.
What was the favorite book? I read it. What was the favorite book you read in high school?
I always loved when you actually
like because we grew up in the 90s. You had to read Mark Twain. You had to read F. Scott Fitzgerald. What did you read that you liked?
I mean, the Catcher in the Rye spoke to me somehow, like, hailing cabs as a kid and just this disenfranchised and everybody's phony and all that stuff. Somehow that really spoke to me when I was about that age,
Yeah.
Like 9th grade, 10th grade type thing.
Last of the Mohicans was a big one for me.
Yeah. That was good
one.
too. That was really good. Yeah.
All right. This is from Wes. Of all the quotes LT could give, this, as placed on this t-shirt, may be the advice us donks finally take. Eat bugs, drink piss, do something kind of fun.
What's this from now?
Was this from Friday's MK Long Island?
Yes. I don't even remember the context, but yes, you said this.
I think I remember. It was like there was had a matchup where everyone was boring in the matchup, Chuck.
Oh, I see it.
I was like, just do something fun. Eat bugs, drink piss.
That's fun.
Oh, you know what it was? BC was interviewing, was it Movsar? He was interviewing either Movsar or somebody, and it was
did
like
play
real
a
dull.
clip of him and Movsar. So
yeah, and it was like real dull. Not by BC's fault, but just
of course
you get what you get.
Yeah.
And I was like, somebody put it up again one more time, and I was like, motherfucker, eat bugs, drink piss, do something kind of fun.
It's like an Anthony Bourdain type quote.
Yes.
I like it.
Eat bugs, drink piss. All right. From Saul, he writes, the month of March has been great so far. My wife's boss gave us free tickets to the rodeo. Wow. So I had to cosplay as a cowboy, followed up by my dog Murphy's birthday. He turned 3 and loves nuggets. Well, what dog doesn't? I mean, come on. Then my dad threw my mom a surprise birthday party, but that didn't stop her from getting involved with cooking and serving all her guests. Look at all the MK gear he's got. Great times, all while wearing the best merch in the game. MK all day, bro. Look at that
delicious
food.
Yeah.
Can I be honest? I don't know about the cukes in the tacos. I don't know if what does he have in there for? Like a palate cleanser?
I don't know. I was trying to figure out what all was in that, but that did look really good.
When was the last time you went to the rodeo?
Oh man. I don't think I've ever been to the rodeo. I grew up in Colorado where there was like Frontier Days nearby and all that stuff, and definitely knew people who were into that sort of thing, but that was not my speed.
Well,
you go to the rodeo?
I've been to the rodeo before, yeah, a few times.
So this isn't your first.
No, definitely not.
legit.
Hey.
What are you
Have
doing
you been
with
to a
your life?
monster truck rally?
I have been to one of those when I lived in Orange County. They had you remember Bigfoot and all that stuff.
Yeah, of course. Gravedigger.
Gravedigger. I think Gravedigger was the one I saw. Yeah, that was actually unexpectedly a lot of fun. I just went with some dudes who had tickets in a box or whatever, and it actually was a lot of fun.
I got drunk as shit and went to one in Richmond.
I'm feeling these margaritas, Brian Campbell.
And it ended up being one of these because there's different kinds, all different ways in which to experience it. But the one I went to was we didn't know anything. This is the fucking 90s. We we'll just go to the fucking let's go see monster trucks in Richmond. We were in college. We drove from Williamsburg. It's like an hour to Richmond. And I drank in the car on the way there because that's responsible. I wasn't driving, but I was definitely drinking in the car.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get there, and it ended up being like a pro wrestling version of monster trucks, where
weird.
there was it was this guy's from Wilmington, North Carolina, this guy's from Delaware, and then there was one guy from Richmond. So everyone's like, woo. And then they do the race, and you could tell that they were letting off the gas to let the guy from Richmond win. So everybody in the audience, myself included, when the race was over, we took our drinks and chucked it at the fucking monster truck, and everyone had to leave at that point. So it was great.
You were juvenile delinquent. I'm surprised. Did you do time in juvie? All right.
I've never even been arrested or handcuffed or anything, and I'm like, do you know how often I have skirted the law in ways that I never should have been allowed
Try to keep that rolling, man. It's a little too late.
I'm like, dude, I'm like 46. I've never been arrested. It's crazy.
That is nuts, man.
Because I definitely should have been. Let me just tell you that.
Who the fuck do you think you are, brother?
Yeah. a reprobate. That's who I think I am. All right, Chuck, what you got for coverage this weekend? Because we do have some, as we mentioned, some big fights this weekend.
This weekend, I'll be doing the crack. I will have some. I'm not quite sure exactly what it's going to be, but the columns are what I've been focused on. So a lot of it is reactive or like previews and stuff like that. So I'll have some stuff on the site at Uncrowned coming up this weekend. Probably it's a big enough card, a big enough weekend where I'll definitely have like a reaction to on Sunday morning.
As a reminder, by the way, before I forget, you can of course email the show morningkombat@gmail.com. Winner of the guy who has the best, or I should say, lady. In theory, who has the best meme for fan subs is going to win an autographed poster. We'll send to you free of charge. So keep sending them in. Thank you to everyone who did. Loved them. More of that, please. You saw the socials. I won't go back over it. The merch, morningkombat.shop. These are the 3 designs here. And of course, one of them you can get both in either the hoodie or the t-shirt form. These will only be available until the 31st. So that's coming up here pretty soon. This will be your last week/weekend to go ahead and do that. Long Island, what do you have to plug?
I got the usual this week, UFC Seattle stuff. I'll have a new prop quiz Friday, watch along Saturday, the whole nine. Look forward to this.
Very good. Well, we shall see. Chuck, great work today. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next Monday. Follow all of Chuck's work if you're out there watching. Oh, as a reminder, one more time, and I'll remind everyone on Friday, Brian Campbell on the call for this weekend's PBC, if you guys want to check that out as well on PBC on Amazon.
Yeah.
All right. So for Iceman himself, Chuck Mindenhall, for everyone else on the show, for Long Island Luke, I'm Luke Thomas. We'll see you guys on Friday. And until then, may all of your gains be loyal. You fucking whore.